Okay, so we're at Joann's. I have to pick up some fabric. I'm going to pick up some fabric to do this DIY, which I have in my head. And I have this idea. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work, but we're going to wing it. So here we go. I got the eyeballs. Let me get some different ones. Okay, so for this project, you are going to need your regular sewing stuff, clips, pins, sewing machine, ruler, potentially if you're making straps. What I also did was for this project is I went onto Etsy and I downloaded a pattern. I paid for and downloaded a pattern from an Etsy shop called BLHandmade. These are the two patterns, so these are two different size baskets. So this is basically what you need. So if you are interested in making the exact basket, I'm going to put a link in the description to where I got this pattern. It was $6.80 plus tax. You pay for it and they send you a link and you download it and you can print it out. It's very, very simple and also very instant, which everyone loves. So I'm going to be making a couple baskets. I'm going to use both different sizes. That's why I have them both out. In addition, you're going to need some fabric. I am going to be using cotton, like quilter's cotton and flannel. So these right here are all flannel. These right here are quilter's cotton, which is that thinner cotton. These are going to be the outsides of my baskets. I'm going to mix and match the patterns up. So the pattern actually calls for quilter's cotton or flannel, I believe, for the whole thing. But I'm probably going to use fleece as my lining part, just because this is going to be for an animal. And instead of making this a trick-or-treat basket, I'm making it into a bed. In addition, you're going to need some Fusible Fleece. This is Pellon 971. It's the Thermalin, so it's a little bit thicker and more heavy duty. There's also a Fusible Fleece that's called 987. It's just the regular standard Fusible Fleece. I've used it a ton of times. It works great. I just prefer this one. If you're going to make straps out of fabric, you're probably going to want to get this. You can get this at it's normally near the cutting counter at Joann's, hanging on like a rack. It was 50% off, so it's like, I don't know, it was like $4 or $5. That's if you're gonna turn like regular cotton into a strap and you want it to be sturdy, then you normally would use this. The other thing that I want to say really quickly too is when you go to Joann's, you can go into the fabric store. These are half-yard cuts. So what I did was I got all of this fabric cut into half-yard cuts. It makes it kind of cheap. You can also get quarter-yard cuts. So if you're only going to make one basket, you don't need all this fabric. You could get a quarter of a yard of a couple different patterns, and it would be really inexpensive. The cool thing about going into the fabric store is that you can have your fabric, if you didn't know, you can have it cut in pretty small pieces. In addition, when you go into Joann's, as I always say, check on their app or check on their website. There's always a coupon, 9 times out of 10 normally, unless it's something that's on like a doorbuster sale, you can't really use a coupon. But check their app and their website. The coupons on the app and the website are not always the same, so there may be different ones in different spots. But do yourself a solid, don't go into Joann's and pay full price. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to cut out a bunch of patterns, a bunch of pieces so that I can make several baskets. And then I'm going to make at least one basket in the tutorial, maybe two, just to see the two sizes. I am not exactly sure whether I'm going to turn these into hammocks or just have them be little basket beds. I might do a couple of each. But I'll show you guys how to add straps to it if you were to choose to make this into a hammock. It's very simple to do that. Okay, so I'm going to start with my outer pieces. And also remember, if you have, like, for this particular fabric, it has eyes. So you want to make sure when you cut this, you cut it so that it is facing the right direction when you go to put it in when you go to make it your basket. So if you put it like this, it's going to be upside down. Like if you put the point facing up, just pay attention to that kind of little stuff. So I'm going to cut out a couple shapes. It's really pretty easy. You probably could fold this over and cut a couple shapes at a time. Okay, so I've cut out my patterns. I actually have cut out way more than I'm going to be making in this video. But here's going to be my big basket. I need 6 paddles for the outside and 6 solid colors for the inside. And then I cut out 12 of these little pellon fusible fleeces. Now, The Fusible Fleece is cut a little bit smaller than the actual pattern or fabric because it makes it easier so you're not trying to sew over top of this. I think the instructions on the pattern that I purchased says to just do this on the outside fabric, but because I am really weird about making things hold its shape, I'm going to do it to all of the pieces. So I will be doing it to the fleece inside piece, and I'll be doing it to the outside pieces as well. So okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm ironing a piece of Fusible Fleece onto all of the backs of my pieces. When you go to attach the Fusible Fleece to actual fleece, you're going to want to only hold the iron with something over top of this for about 5 seconds at a time. If you hold it on there very long for regular fleece, you will burn it. So you want to take your time and just put a towel down and do 5 seconds, 6 seconds, maybe even 8 seconds, lift up, move to the next spot. Do that until it fuses. It may take 20 to 30 seconds to get it to fuse onto your fleece, but if you hold it in one spot for 20 seconds like the direction instructs, you will burn it. So if you want to hold it down for 20 seconds on your cotton pieces, that's fine. You're not going to hurt those. Okay, so I have it all laid out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my towel. I'm going to cover up my pieces. So when you're doing your regular fleece, you're going to just hold it down like this. And just pick it up. Hold it down. Pick it up. Don't go like this. Not on the fleece. You can do it. You can do all that with your regular cotton, but you just can't do it with the fleece. I bet you that's stuck. So that's stuck on there. If you have any pieces that come up, just make sure you just hit that with the iron just to make sure it's down. And then it looks like something like this. It'd be just completely attached. Like I said, if it's got little pieces coming up, you just got to hold it on there a little bit longer. So you're going to take 2 of your pieces, and if you have them go in a certain way, then put them the way that you want, and take 2 of them and lay them right sides together. Like this. And then you're going to clip them in place on one side. Make sure you line them up as the best that you can. Now you're going to go to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch from here to here. You're going to back stitch on each corner and you're going to do a 1/4 inch seam. Make sure these are lined up. I'm going to put my 1/4 inch mark is right here. Okay, so you should have something that looks like this. You're going to want to open it up. And now you have your seam right here. You want to push the seam to one side. One side. For me, I'm going to push it so that it's leaning against this black and white fabric. So I'm going to push my seam in that direction. I'm just going to put a little tiny clip at each end to hold that seam on that side. So now I will have my seam will be laying against this. I want it laying against the black fabric like this. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch it down. I'm going to top stitch it so that it stays on this side of the fabric. Now you're going to probably have to get pretty close to your seam line, but your goal is to keep, you want to keep your seam pushed to the one side. And see how it's moving. So you have to use your hands and your fingers to do this, to feel it, so you know you have it laying where you want. You see my stitch line here, and that my seam is pressed against this stitch now in place against that side. So now you have your piece. You put the top stitch. I had mine look like this. Yeah, that's how my pattern's gonna go. So I'm gonna take my next piece and I'm gonna lay it right sides together on the pumpkin, or wherever it goes for you. You're gonna match the edges up, or match the sides up on the, and then you're gonna do the same thing that you just did. And you're gonna stitch from here to here, and then you're gonna flip it right side out and top stitch the seam in one direction. Now you should have something that looks like this. And you're going to put this aside for a second, and you're going to do the exact same thing with the other half of your outside pieces. Okay, so now you should have 2 of these. You want to push it so that the wrong side are facing you for one of them, and you want to sit them on top of each other like this. You want to make sure that you match up your bottoms, so you match up your seams at the bottom. You're going to clip that, and then you're going to match up your edges. Now you're going to go over to your sewing machine. You're going to stitch from this end all the way down and around to here. You're not going to stitch, don't stitch the top, so don't stitch. Alright, so now you should have something that looks like this. You want to turn it so the right sides are facing out. It should look like this. Now there's a seam that you didn't top stitch because you just put it together. So you have to go to your sewing machine and you have to work your way around. You're going to have to kind of hold it and go all the way from this part all the way down to the other side, wherever you haven't top stitched, where we just connected it. So we're going to do that really quickly. My seam is flat down underneath where this spiderweb pattern is. So I'm just going to go down, and you're going to have to keep messing with it and come up underneath. Make sure you don't sew the bag, and you're going to have to kind of move it around as you sew till you make it to the other side. Make sure we're not stitching that, so pull that out of the way. You see your seam right there? Just make sure it's still in the same position where it should be. Here's the center of the bag right there. Our seam's still doing good. It's going to keep going. Okay, so now you have this. You can sit this aside for a minute. And get your solid colors. Now, you're going to do the same thing with the solid colors, except you don't have to top stitch it. So just put these together. You want them right sides facing together. You're going to do the exact same process, just skip the top step. So we're just going to do 3 and 3, and then we're going to put them together, right sides together, and put them, so we're creating this minus the top stitch. All right, so I did a couple ahead of time just so I could get an idea of what I wanted to do with the one for the tutorial. So here is another small one that is the same as this size. That's this one. And basically it looks like this, and I'm gonna just use it as like a cuddle cup, so, or sell it, or I don't know, I think I might sell it, I might keep it. This is actually my favorite. I'll probably keep it. I'm just gonna let the ferrets climb in here and sleep because it's super cute. And then there's this one. It looks like this. It's a little bit bigger. So honestly, my ferrets would probably like this one too, but I think it makes a cute cuddle cup. You could totally make it a hammock. So take your outer fabric and turn it so that it means wrong side facing out. Get your fleece that you just created that should look exactly the same, and turn it so that it's the right side is facing out. And now stick this inside of here. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna line up the seams and clip it. So if you see seam to seam, and try to get your threads that are hanging so they're not on the inside. So clip these seams to the seams, and this will kind of straighten itself out once you get it going in there. Okay, so if you clip it all together, you notice this is kind of tall if you compare it to this one. So what I did was I cut this down a little bit. Now we are going to take this off. Alright, now if you want to be a little more precise with this, or you're worried you're not going to do this right, take them apart and measure them and do it that way. I am going to cut this about 1.5 inches, maybe 1 inch or so. And I'm going to cut it all the way around. Alright, that looks good. Okie dokie. So first let's clip it back together before we add in any of our straps, because I feel like that's most important, is to get it back to where we just had it. Okay, so now you have it back together like this. Now make sure that if you're going to use strapping, that all your strappings are the same length. I'm going to put these across from each other. And you got to put it between the outer fabric and the inner fabric, and then let it hang out even amount. So if this is about 1 inch, then you want to have it hang out about 1 inch all the way around for all of the straps. So now you got your straps in. And what you want to do is you want to sew all the way around, but you want to leave about a 3-inch opening somewhere so you can flip this right side out when you're done. I normally take a pin and mark a 3-inch spot, like 2 pins, and then I sew from pin to pin and I leave a 3-inch opening. And that way you can flip it right side out. And I would backstitch and go across your strapping at least twice just to make sure it stays in place. Also, if you wanted to make it like this one and you didn't want any straps, then you would not add the straps and stitch all the way around and leave an opening to flip it right side out. So there's no difference if you add the straps except you're adding the straps. Okay, so now you should have something that looks like this, and there should be an opening somewhere, like right here, anywhere wherever you left the opening. If your sewing machine isn't great at going over thick fabrics, you may want to trim these down. Just know that it can get a little bit thick. I leave mine because I found by trimming it down, it made it harder. I know that sounds really crazy. Anyway, flip it right side out. You'll have like a muffin looking thing. And then just grab it by its seams and tuck your fleece inside. Shake it around if you have to. And this is where I like to pin my edges because it helps my seam. I think my seams look better that way. We'll close the hole in a second. So right now we're just lining up our inner and outer fabrics. I do this is optional, but to me when I go to top stitch it, it just helps it look nice because I've already lined everything up the way that I want it to be. All right, now you get to your opening and it should naturally tuck in, it should roll. And then you're just gonna do what you did all the way around and you're just gonna line up these edges and clip them. All right, you should have something that looks like this. And you can go over to your sewing machine and you're going to want to top stitch all the way around this basket. Okay, so you'll probably have to remove the tray off your sewing machine so that this can fit around. I have my, I'm going to set this to 6 because it's thick. And I'm just going to top stitch, making sure that I close that opening on my way around. Okay, and when you're done, you'll have something that looks like this. And then you can hang it in your cage and as a hammock. You could also use the bigger one or just leave it like this. So it's kind of like a Cuddle cup, but a little deeper without the pocket. A ferret can absolutely get in here. I was going to sell some of these, but now I want to keep them all for myself, which is crazy. But I don't know. We'll have to see. Anyway, I'm probably going to give one to my ferret to test out because they're super cute and I want them to play in them. Anyway, that's our tutorial.